Pfizer will pay. Welcome to Sound the Dorrance. My name is Kenneth Murator. Came across an article in bizjournals.com, and I'm quoting their headline here. Pfizer will pay $2.3 billion to settle allegations of illegally promoting drugs. You know, we're in the midst of a health insurance reform debate when it ought to be focused on a health care reform. And I see individuals out there protesting and making a stance for and against the public option. And these individuals that are for the public option are not saying anything about situations like this. And in fact, it's the very insurance industry model that enables these corporations to exploit the individual and the individual's wealth. That's what needs to be debated. You know, some think that the government has no role in the private sector. That's just not true. The government has a right to ensure that individuals within the United States are able to pursue happiness. Okay, now, biblically, we are to pursue Christ, but that doesn't mean that Christ is for injustices. And when we're reading articles like this, it just makes the case. You know, the government wants to create a public health insurance option, and it's that very option which is going to continue to enable pharmaceutical companies to exploit individuals just as they have in this instance. Now, of course, the government has stepped in and they brought some justice, but $2.3 billion in light of all the earnings of the pharmaceutical industry is just a drop in the bucket. Matter of fact, it makes a great headline as the government goes and attempts to present its case with regards to this health insurance and health care debate. You know, I'm going to quote it for a little bit here. It's talking about that. And I quote, the U.S. Department of Justice said in a Wednesday release that the settlement with Pfizer and its Pharmaceutica and Upjohn Co. Inc. unit is the largest health care fraud settlement in the agency's history. I mean, what timing to come out with something like this? Listen, this is a billion-dollar industry. Pfizer doesn't care. They'll gladly pay in order to secure a forced participation in the health insurance industry, therefore enabling their continued exploitation of individual citizens. You know, I quote again, in what is the largest healthcare fraud settlement in U.S. history, the company will pay more than $2.3 billion. Friends, that's nothing. Look at the amount of money that these pharmaceutical companies are generating. They spend over $50 billion a year in marketing to physicians in order to promote these drugs. And I quote, the civil settlement also resolves allegations that Pfizer paid kickbacks to healthcare providers to induce them to prescribe these and other drugs. And that's why you don't hear a lot of doctors saying anything about it. And I have no issue with individuals earning income in a free market situation when they're not exploiting the wealth of other individuals. You know, many people don't understand what a free market is in light of justice for all. You know, if somebody comes to you in a situation of, say, macular degeneration, you know, they have a prescription drug that can enable the individual to continue to see. You have to take this like once a month, but the cost is $2,000 a shot, $2,000 every month so that you can continue to see. Friends, that's no solution. That's extortion. Don't come to me and tell me that I need to pay $2,000 so my grandmother can see a month. All right? And here's a quote. But exchanges are not necessarily free. Many are coerced. If a robber threatens you, your money or your life, your payment to him is coerced and not voluntary, and he benefits at your expense. It is robbery, not free markets, that actually follows the mercantilist model. The robber benefits at the expense of the coerced. Exploitation occurs not in the free market, but where the coercer exploits his victims. End quote. This was from the econlive.org. That's what's going on within the health insurance, healthcare industry. You, as individual citizens, are being robbed, and the vehicle that is driving the robbery is the health insurance industry. Now, there are some that point to, well, it's not health insurance because they're diverting your attention. They're diverting you to the bottom line. Well, health insurance companies only make 4%. They are the root cause. It's because of the pool of wealth that insurance companies collect that enables companies such as Pfizer and other individuals to exploit individuals to the point where the federal government is having them pay back $2.3 billion. Okay, and that's just a drop in a bucket compared to what they're earning. But the insurance industry is the vehicle. It's the same thing with the banking industry, with the Federal Reserve. That's a private company. If you like the Federal Reserve and you think that you ought not to have control over the printing of your own currency and that they have a right to exploit you by charging you interest, well, then you're going to love the health insurance model. You're going to love that. You're going to think it's fantastic because you love the exploitation of the individual. You love highway robbery. That's what you love. And you have every right to love that. That's your choice, but let's call it for what it is. And that's why I say individuals that are out there that are holding up, Obamacare, listen, you are voting for a continuation of the exploitation of the individual. Then you have the other side that's promoting free markets, free markets. They also are voting for a continuation of the exploitation of the individual. What ought to be addressed is situations like this. Okay, that's what ought to be addressed. And it's just so interesting that individuals on both sides of the debate are seen to lose sight of the larger issue at hand. Individuals do have the right to pursue happiness according to the Constitution, but not at the expense or exploitation of other individuals, and that's exactly what's going on here. Again, individuals will point to the health insurance industry only earning 4%. 4% of what? They're earning 4% of billions of dollars. Their net income is, in some cases, over $1 billion, $1.2 billion, $800 million in net profit. And these same individuals that say, well, 4% is not a lot of income, not a lot of wealth, it's only a tiny little bit. Well, look at that in relation to the amount of money that the United States gives in foreign aid. These same individuals will stand up and say, well, we give more than every other country in the world. And unless you think that these two issues aren't related, they are related. Because, see, the judge of all the earth judges the nations based on what they're doing with regards to their wealth and other nations of the world, okay? I'm not talking about a socialistic, communistic environment. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is sustaining the health and welfare of other individuals when it's in your hands and your ability to do good. When you have starving children or children in other countries whose skin is literally falling off because they can't have access to clean water, there's an issue there. And then these same individuals that say that healthcare doesn't earn anything think that we give a lot of money when we give less than 2% of our GDI or the GDP, depending on how you want to look at it. Less than 2% is what we as a nation give. So don't sit here and tell me that we're a benevolent, God-fearing nation when we allow children in other parts of the world skin to fall off because they don't have access to clean water. And I'm not saying that every individual is responsible for that, but I'm just saying that whatever God has put in your hand, he holds us accountable for. Okay, that's what the judge of all the earth is looking at. And these same individuals think that, well, low taxes, the government should have little or no intervention. Listen, the judge of all the earth has set up the government to govern, okay? That's what they're there for. I'm not suggesting that they have or ought to regulate every facet of an individual's life, but they have the right to enforce the well-being of individuals and to denounce the exploitation of those individuals by others. Jesus tells us when he was questioned in Matthew, the 22nd chapter, the 17th verse, when it came to him and said, tell us therefore, what thinkest thou? Is it lawful to give tribute unto Caesar or not? And Jesus perceived their wickedness and said, why tempt me, ye hypocrites? Because these people didn't want to lift a finger to do good to somebody else. They didn't care. All they cared about is their own prosperity. Jesus said, show me the tribute money. And they brought unto him a penny. And he said unto them, who is this image and subscription? They said unto him, Caesar's. Then saith he unto them, render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things which are God. God does not denounce. The Lord Jesus Christ, who's the Word, okay, does not denounce the institution of governments. He's the one who has established governments, but for them to do right. If you're not standing against the exploitation of individuals, then you're not standing up for that which is right and that which is just. The government is to enforce that which is right and just, okay, not to enable other individuals to exploit. Okay, and that's what's happening within the insurance industry. Jesus said, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also be the coming of the Son of Man. Well, what were the days of Noah like? Well, you look at it in Genesis, the 6th chapter. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japhet, and the earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. Look up that word violence. I mean, we don't have the time here, but it doesn't mean necessarily just physical violence, but it means the exploitation of individuals, and that's exactly. Maybe you don't care about the exploitation of other individuals. Maybe I don't. Maybe none of us do naturally. That's why Jesus says you must be born again, for it's God who cares about every individual. You know, it's no small coincidence that after Jesus told them that they were hypocrites with relation to paying tribute to Caesar, that he was then asked about the resurrection of the dead. So he's appointed on the man once to die and then face judgment. And John the Baptist, who was a preacher of righteousness, spoke of the judgment to come. And soldiers came to him, demanding him, saying, "And what shall we do to escape this judgment?" And he said unto them, "Do violence to no man, neither accuse any falsely, and be content with your wages." That is, don't go exploiting other individuals for your own benefit. You know, Romans tells us that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. May he give us the spirit of wisdom and revelation. May we partake of his righteousness, thus escaping the judgment to come. God bless.